Welcome back to the activation phase. This is Tim, and I'm here with JP, as always. Hello.
Hello, everyone. We are doing Scots today. Super hyped. I think both of us are hyped.
Yeah, they're super good. They're very interesting, and they have 1.5 different versions. Yeah, they have 2 different versions, and one is very, very good, and one is maybe interesting to play with, but maybe a little bit harder to make the board work with. So we'll get into all those details and what the versions are and the equipment right now, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So, good point regarding what the 2 versions. So let's just get that out of the way straight away. We are going to handle the board as is, and then we'll talk about the 2 versions and what we think is good and bad at the end, and maybe give you 2 separate kind of lists that we think would be that would work. So the first one is the Chiltern version, which represents the Scottish people fighting against the English in Scotland. So it's a little bit earlier in terms of the timeline, I think. And then the second one is the Old Alliance, which is the Scottish expeditionary units sent to aid the French against their old enemy, the English, in France. So it represents a more professional army. So it's more mounted, more men at arms, stuff like that. So the two different equipment options could not be more different, which normally is not a good sign for a board.
Yeah.
However, spoiler alert, I think in this case, it's like it actually works pretty okay. I think it's both are viable, but one is definitely has an edge. So, having said that, should we move straight to the board?
Yeah, since I mean, because I think let's just quickly give an overview, like for the equipment, so it makes sense what the abilities actually do. If I think that makes a lot of sense.
I am so hyped by this board. I was building extra pike guys last night, and I was I completely forgot we missed the equipment, but it's completely right. It's quite an important part of this warband. So I'll kick it off if you don't mind with the Chiltern version. So your warlord can only be on foot. Your Hearthguards can only be on foot. Obviously, no special equipment. Your warriors have the option of being either equipped with pikes or or mounted on horses, but you can only take a unit of up to 8 figures if they are mounted. And then finally, the levies only have one option, which is bows. So nice and simple. And then the Old Alliance, so that's the more professional troops going to France. You have more options. So your warlord and Hearthguard are either on foot or they are mounted on horses. So no barding for them. Warriors, exactly the same thing. They are either on foot with no special equipment or they are mounted on horses. And then finally, the levies can only be equipped with bows. So more options for the Old Alliance, but more power for the Chiltern.
Yeah.
I would
say. I think you skipped the Hearthguard. They have the same as well. They have no equipment or on horse without barding. So warlord, Hearthguard, warriors, all horse can be mounted. That's what it says. It's just no barding, foot or horse. And yeah. All right. So very different. One can be very, very speedy, and the other one's with pikes. So that's Sarissas in the old book, right? And let's just quickly talk about what Sarissas do, or pikes. Your move is shortened to short. Your charge distance is still medium. If you have no fatigue and you're in open terrain, when you fight the moment the Saga dice are thrown, basically, is the important moment. You get a +1 bonus to your attack dice when fighting mounted units and elephants, which isn't too relevant in the book, but still.
For now.
And then if they can close ranks. And if they are not within a piece of terrain, so they have to be in the open, they can activate once per turn for free, no fatigue, no die required. They can activate for a shoot that's short, basically just like javelins, but a little bit shorter. And yeah, that's That's the pikes, and they still can close ranks, and they count as having no ranged weapons, even though they can do that shoot. So I think that's interesting. Very powerful equipment. That the biggest downside of it is that that your move is short and too short. And spoiler alert: the Scots are quite good at not giving a heck about it and just moving a lot anyway.
Yeah, so just maybe one additional point: you can close ranks, but only if you're fully in open terrain. So that's a pretty important restriction. But I think you mentioned that right at the beginning. Okay, makes sense. We don't have to go through barding because they don't have any barding. They don't have pavises or anything else. So that's really the only special equipment that they have.
All right, let's get into the board.
Yeah. Okay, so this is nice and easy regarding the basic abilities. So the usual hero, Hearthguard, warriors, and levies. This time the combat bonus allows you to have 1 attack dice or 1 defense dice in melee or as a shooting defense, not to get additional shooting attack dice. So I think that's pretty much all of the boards except for the English have that. And then finally the activation pool is same as always. So nothing too crazy on the top.
All right, let's get into the first crazy ability, and it's called In Defense, and it's an activation ability that takes a rare. It says, choose 2 non-mercenary units within medium of each other. You can remove 1 fatigue from each of them. And this is not a rest. This is a completely different thing. You just take 1 fatigue from up to 2 units, and that's very good. Because you can do this after you charged and you kind of gathered that additional fatigue, or you can do it after you moved your warband up twice, because I mean, your guys are very slow, and you maybe want to double activate them to move a lot. And then, yeah, you have 2 big pike units, and you move them up, and then afterwards you just do In Defense, and they get rid of the fatigue. And you can do it at the beginning of your turn. You rest your guys, and then you play In Defense, and now there's 4 fatigue or whatever, how many rests you did, is just gone, and your units are fresh again. These types of abilities that just take fatigue away, we see them in other boards, like the Vikings. I think they have that around their warlord. They're usually very restrictive, and they're very expensive, and they're very good. So what do you think, JP?
Yeah, this is really good. It makes it also the restriction that you have to be within M of each other is probably not that big a deal, because you have a lot of other buffs regarding kind of like being close to other people in this board anyway. So the chances of you being close to another unit is very high.
Yeah.
Also great, obviously, with your warlord, etc. So yeah, exactly. This is a good, strong ability starting off this board.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, the next one is Lances High. This is a 2 dice ability with 2 common dice. Melee ability, so gain 2 attack dice and 2 defense dice. If your unit is equipped with pikes, gain 3 additional defense dice. Otherwise, gain 3 additional attack dice. 2 dice abilities, I think our feelings are pretty known about those ones. But 5 defense dice, yeah, it's good. I mean, it just feels like very expensive for the 2 commons, especially because you have a lot of warriors on the board anyway. So this seems like it will kind of, it's not going to be played as much as I think you would expect. It's nice to have it there, but yeah, 2 common dice, you could be doing a lot of other stuff with it. And I think there's some better options on this board, to be honest.
Yeah, that's always the problem of the good boards. That I mean, that's a pretty common conversion rate in the Age of Chivalry. 2 dice for 7 attack or defense dice, or mixed or whatever. I think like 5 boards have that, and 1 board has 8, but it's conditional. And so that's nothing super special, but on the other boards it's just better, because the other Scots abilities are just super good, and so you don't really want to be spending those 2 commons here. So that's a bit unfortunate. But if you have them, or you basically have a turn with all commons, or you don't need many activations because you're already very close to your opponent, or to your opponent's army rather, and your warlord yelling "We obey" out is enough to get the action going, then this might become super good. And so I think it's a great tool to have, especially with the other ability coming up. The inner great rush ability, and which unfortunately also takes a common. But it's super expensive for a board that wants commons. So yeah. Alright. Next up is Drive Home the Nail. It's a melee ability for attackers only that takes an uncommon die. After removing casualties, the engaged units immediately resolve another melee. I think this one's amazing. It's so good because you don't take fatigue. Yes, of course, your opponent's not taking fatigue either, but you get to decide when you want to trigger this, and so you should usually be doing this in a favorable matchup or fight, melee, whatever. And this is basically just a ton of extra attack dice for the price of getting extra attack dice or giving extra attack dice to your opponent. This is basically what this does. And so if you're doing it in a situation where you're ahead anyway, then this is just a snowball effect. If you're going to win the first melee because you played some abilities, or you're expecting to win the first melee and you played some abilities, then the second melee is also going to be in your favor anyway, and you're going to just make sure you get all the value out of it. But since you play this, yes, go for it.
Yeah. They just to make it clear to our listeners, there's a clarification in the kind of the fluffy text or the explanation that you have to re-trigger all of your. It's a new melee basically, so you have to trigger all the new abilities again, so you don't they don't carry over.
Yeah.
I think that, like, not that you were saying that, but just to make it clear for our listeners.
Yeah, but is there anything? There's nothing in it saying that you get a fatigue or anything, right? It's because it says after casualties.
It's because it's before you do the withdrawing, you get your fatigue, so you don't get the fatigue. And maybe what you were probably going to say is that the fatigue for you is less of a big deal than a lot of other boards with the indefense that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and also the way we're going to suggest later to kind of build your army, we're going to talk about the mounted crossbowmen, and the mounted crossbowmen work super well with this ability because the new combat, they give out basically to units close to them, they give out free bonus attack dice, and so the Drive Home the Nail will use that twice, and that's very effective to actually do Drive Home the Nail. So a good ability, great ability. I love it.
Yeah, good name, good ability. and uncommon, so it doesn't really hinder your warrior activation.
Yeah.
So even better. Okay, cool. The next one is the Front Lines. This is a ability, orders reaction ability, using either a common or an uncommon. So choose 2 non-mercenary units with an M of each other, 1 Hearthguard unit and 1 warrior unit. Until the end of the turn, each time these units are targeted by a shooting attack while within M of each other, the Hearthguards can remove their casualties from the warrior unit, and the warrior unit increases its armor by 1. So lots of text, but it's basically 2 separate things in one. That I think I will reference other abilities in other ages. So the first one is kind of like using the Mongols using bodyguards rule for like other units, like the warriors or levies within M of themselves. And then the separate one is if your opponent decides to shoot the warriors straight away because it's easier to harm them, they are also helped because now their armor is higher. So really, it's just really solid. But it is just a shooting attack. So that makes it a little bit less awesome, I guess. But it makes everyone just survive running towards the enemy a little bit longer, especially compared to when you're fighting like English or other such shooty armies.
I'm just gonna because I think it deserves it. I am just gonna do this. Because I don't think it's the best ability. I think it's the worst one on the board. Because it doesn't really matter to the Scottish, I think. Because you can do you can you don't really need this because you're super tough anyway. It's Hearthguard and warriors on foot or with pikes, and you don't really need this buff, I think, in my opinion.
Unless you're going fully mounted, in which case you don't have the barding, so this might be worth it. But yeah, you're quite quick anyway, so I don't think you'll be sitting out in the open that much.
Yeah, waiting to be shot. Yeah.
But if you do fuck up, then okay, you have this as backup.
Yeah, true. All right, next up is No Quarter. It's a melee ability that takes any die facing. All units in this melee, allied and enemy, reduce their armor by 1. If you use a rare, you gain 2 attack dice. I think this is an interesting ability because it doesn't really give you an advantage. It just changes the melee. And so this needs to be part of a combo or a kind of like a situation where you don't mind losing more figures, or you have so many defense dice that you won't lose any anyway. And so I think the No Quarter without the rare, because I don't think you'll ever put or you're rarely going to put the rare here. No pun intended. The No Quarter is probably good with the Lances High and Pikemen because you have 5 additional defense dice to make sure that your people your warriors don't die, or Hearthguard. And then there's another ability coming up that works with the defense dice and kind of buffs them. And so I think if you have these going, then doing this and reducing your armor and allowing more hits to go through is totally fine because your defense dice are going to be so good and so plentiful. And so that's not a big deal. But in general, just playing this ability is only good without doing anything else. It's only good if your opponent has a higher armor than you do. So I think we talked about it in the English episode, but if you're fighting Hearthguard, then reducing their armor by 1 gives you like 50% additional hits, and reducing your armor, which is usually if it's warriors, then it's armor 4, and reducing your armor by 1 gives them only like 33% additional hits. So that can make a difference. So never ever use this on your Hearthguard unless you have other abilities going. And I think this one's a tricky one. Maybe still better than the front lines, but not the best. But only if you play it with other abilities like Lances High and in a Great Rush, for example, because then your defense dice are going to help you out anyway. Or if you have warriors and you go into Hearthguard. That's just what I said. But if you don't do it, if you don't have other things going on, then don't play this. This is not going to help you out more than it is your opponent.
The next one is Brothers in Arms. This is a melee or shooting ability, and it takes a common or an uncommon. If your unit has at least 6 attack dice, it gains 3 attack dice. Definitely good for a common. And I think, it's just better combat bonus, basically. Nothing too special. I think on the shooting side of things with your pike dudes, it makes it much more interesting. I think we're probably going to both say at the end of this section that you're going to take bigger pike blocks anyway. You're going to be like 12 guys. So you're obviously going to start losing guys. So this is going to lose effectiveness pretty quickly. But I think all in all, it's okay, but not the best thing, unless at least for the shooting side of things.
Yeah, it's just somewhat efficient, right? Gaining 3 attack dice can for a common or usually an uncommon on this board. That it's okay. It's not insane, but it's not bad. So nice to have, nice tool to have. But a really, really nice tool to have is the next one, and it's in a Great Rush. That's an activation ability that takes a common, again, unfortunately. Activate a unit to charge. If it is equipped with pikes, it gains a +1 bonus to all its defense dice. Otherwise, its charge distance is increased by short. And with more abilities that are coming up, the moving around isn't too difficult with the Scots, because yes, you have the one that moves like in defense, that removes fatigue, so you can double activate with less of a problem. And there's another reaction coming up that can lets you move in your opponent's turn. And so the whole movement is quite easy anyway. So I think the charge bonus isn't too impactful. And if you have horses and they already have a charge distance of long, giving them short extra is pretty far, but then they're not super supported in the melee. And so I think the +1 bonus to defense dice is just super good, and it's just a activate a unit to charge. So that's what you would pay for your warriors anyway, and then they get the great +1 bonus to all their defense dice. That's just a great ability. Really, really good ability.
Yeah, I think this is amazing. Also, what you said with combining with no quarter to make it less bad, or make no quarter less bad. And then obviously, you're charging, so it's not like you can close ranks anyway. But you still get the buff with none of the downsides. So I think that's pretty. This is like a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Lions of Scotland. This takes a rare and is a melee ability. So choose an ability on the enemy battleboard containing one active Saga dice. Your opponent must discard that dice. This reminds me of the Eastern Prince's ability, where you can basically take off or stop people from using a specific ability. It is a rare, but I think some of the combos in Age of Chivalry are definitely going to be nice to be able to stop them and just completely negate whatever people want to do. So I'm a big fan. The rare is a little bit tough, especially it's going to be a little bit of a toss-up to see if you're doing the in defense or the Lions of Scotland. I think the rares are going to be difficult to allocate here. But I think all in all, like super useful ability. It's just like you can't do it with against shooting attacks or anything like that. So it is just a melee ability, but it's great to kill the combos, which is always nice.
Yeah, that's very nice. And one thing to keep in mind, it says choose an ability on the enemy battle board containing one active Saga die, and that's not like special ability or advanced is what I meant to say. So you can take away activations with this. And that can definitely matter in grindy games where you can take an activation away from your opponent. Just a basic ability, and it might be a waste. You're trading a rare for one of their, I don't know, just a common on their warrior activation. But that warrior activation can sometimes just be game or no game, especially if it's about moving objectives or needing one more charge because otherwise they can't do it. And so I feel like Lions of Scotland is super good to use one of your early rares that maybe in one of the turns where you're moving up anyway, and you might not need it if you don't want to use it in defense. Just put it on here and leave it, and then I think the longer the game goes on, the more valuable it becomes, and I think it's a super cool ability to have ready at the right moment. Next up is Determined Advance. It's a activation reaction that can take either a uncommon or a rare. Trigger this ability after an enemy charge or shoot activation has been resolved. Activate a foot unit, up to 2 units if you use a rare, to make a move with a distance of medium. And before I say anything about this is so good. This is so good with these pikes, because just for no reason, just because they can suddenly move medium, and they can do it in your opponent's turn, and they can do it as a reaction. So you can have nice things after everything is done. So you have nice positioning after everything is, like, the charges are done and stuff. This ability is gold, and it makes everything in the Scottish battleboard work. And so this is 10 out of 10. Love it. Insane value.
Yeah, this is the key. I was kind of underwhelmed by the board until like this one, or not underwhelmed, but I thought it was okay. But like once you start thinking about this one, it just makes it so much better. Like your pikes are no longer slow and lame. So yes, this is the moneymaker, I think. So yeah, I don't know. There's nothing more to say. This is great. So I think I would be playing this very, very consistently. Also, it means that you can activate your warrior unit with an uncommon as well if you don't roll an extra rare. All in all, super. Anyway, last one, but not least, Shield Bearers. It's played with the uncommon dice. It's a melee ability, and it's for Hearthguards or heroes. So gain 2 defense dice to a maximum of 6 for each unit of warriors within M of your unit. More stacking of defense dice along with everything else on the board. So it makes your, obviously it makes your warlord and Hearthguard that much more or less of a liability to have on the board. So I think we're going to talk about the warband composition and everything like that. And this makes it, or at least for me, not such a gigantic liability to have a big unit of Hearthguard, because you can stack up your defense dice. You're probably going to be close to each other anyway because of like in defense and determined advance, or actually not determined advance, like stuff like that. You're going to be bunched up anyway. So I think it's okay. It definitely helps you out, and yeah, I mean 6 defense dice, if you can pull that off, is insane.
I mean, yes, and this one doesn't just count friendlies, right? So it's if you have your Hearthguard charging a unit of enemy warriors, and you have a unit of warriors just nearby, or the mounted crossbowmen that we talked about earlier, they're also warriors, and this doesn't say no mercenaries, then it just works, and there's layers and layers of buffs and good positioning, and I think that's just very, very good.
Yeah, I hadn't actually realized that technically enemy warriors as well.
Yeah.
Insane. Okay. Nice. All right. How would you play the Shiltron version of this board?
You mean composition-wise?
Yep.
Right. So for those, I'd do the warlord. It has to be on foot, and I think a 6-man of Hearthguard on foot to allow the warlord to be a bit more aggressive and charge himself. And also 6 Hearthguard on foot are just super good when you have some way to control fatigue, so you can get them where you need them to be. Then 12 warriors with pikes, just so brothers in arms. So if you have at least 6 attack dice, you can gain 3 more. Works with their shot, and you do that twice. So 12 warriors with pikes again, and then 8 of the mounted crossbowmen I think are super good. And then just if you're going to an event or tournament, at least here in Europe, I guess, or Western Europe, we're allowed to basically just write down 1 point of levies and then switch out half a point for something else. So that's like half of the Hearthguard in the beginning. So the thing that's left is 6 levies to generate Saga dice. But you can always just switch away from the 6 Hearthguard down to 4 and then have a full unit of levies. If you need more shooting, which I don't think you will, but you might. So why not?
I'm pretty close to that. I think that's a really good starting position as well. And I think your big units of pike bros moving up are going to be pretty solid and difficult to kill. So very nice, pretty scary. And moving on to maybe the less good option, the Old Alliance. How would you be organizing your warband for them?
I think we talked about them. I mean, we talked about them before we started recording, and the list that's kind of there, but maybe it's not insane with the board, but it's the best thing the Old Alliance can bring. Maybe is the Warlord mounted, and then 6 Hearthguard mounted, 12 warriors on foot, another 12 warriors on foot, and then the last 1.5 points, maybe nice mercenaries to make the horses better, or the cannon, because the cannon is just super good, and you don't need a ton of uncommons with this board. But I mean, the list I've written down is 8 more warriors on foot and then 4 more warriors on foot. But I'm honestly not super sure. I think the pike one is just that much better that it's not really worth it to go without pikes for the sport.
Yeah, definitely. So I would concur on this particular one. I think the conclusion that we both have also is that the pike version is much more versatile and just eliminates a lot of the issues that you have, or the downsides with the pike, which is slow movement, with and kind of like the some of the buffs that you lose when you have fatigue, because you can take away fatigue very easily, and you can move outside of your turn very easily as well. So I think it's like all in all, it really takes away the downsides of the pike. So there's no reason not to take it then. So I don't know. I'm a big fan. I'm looking forward to trying them out.
Yeah, me too. I always kind of disliked the Sarissas in the ancient books, and I think the Scottish make the pikes work so well, and I'm super excited. I already bought a box of Perry mercenaries to build 18 pikes and kind of sub in some normal non-pike guys to make them into 24 pikemen.
I'm making more pikes for my Flemish, so I'm just using the French Agincourt box and then just putting longer wire spears on them.
Nice.
And then it's kind of like, yeah, it's pretty generic, so I can use them for my Flemish and Scottish, and all I need to do is paint some extra guys with different banners, and then it'll be fine. But how are we rating this? I'm going to give them a 4 out of 5 Irn Bru, the traditional drink of Scotland. So how about you?
I think I'd give the Scottish battle board a 4.5, because I think it's very powerful. And yes, they don't want to be in terrain, like the pikes don't want to be in terrain, but they don't really care if they walk into terrain. They're not gonna suddenly lose their fighting power or whatever. Yes, they can close ranks, but I feel like usually that's a problem with armies that want to be in the open, that if your opponent does the terrain setup well, then you struggle. But these guys just don't. Like, yeah, yes, it's not going to be optimal, but they're still going to slap. And so I think these are 4.5 out of 5.
I think we both think they're really good, super fun. And to be honest, what I have seen of the boards at the moment, like none of them really want that much terrain to begin with. So I don't think you're gonna, if you're playing just within the book, the terrain should be relatively light for everyone.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
What
another one in the bag.
Yeah, insane.
Let's wrap this one up, Tim.
Right. So there's gonna be the number for the, what's it called again, JP? The mailbox? No,
voicemail.
Is it called mailbox? Voicemail. That's what it's called. Yeah, for the voicemail, leave us a voicemail on what you think with the Scottish, what your experiences are, and if you're building any right now, we're interested, and we're looking forward to putting these voicemails in, and it's probably going to start in the next 2 episodes or so, because we pre-produced these, so gotta wait for some voicemails to come in. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, and speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.